The electoral votes of Wisconsin and Pennsylvania were crucial to the election of Donald Trump in 2016. A new CBS News Battleground Tracker poll shows that the voters in those two swing states, though, might be changing their minds. Former Vice President Biden is up by 6 points in Pennsylvania, and the presumptive Democratic nominee is also leading in Wisconsin. Both Democrats and Republicans are eyeing these two states as electoral prizes for the 2020 election. For more, let's go ahead and bring in one of my favorite people to talk to, CBS News Elections and Surveys Director, Anthony Salvanto. Anthony, so good always to have you with us. One of the things that I always appreciate about our chats is the importance of state-level polling. A lot is sometimes made about national polls, but we know, and 2016 further proved, that the popular vote is not what matters when it comes to who's in the White House. So tell us why Pennsylvania and Wisconsin are so crucial to deciding the election.
I am so glad you said that, because we can't say it enough, right? You know, last time, 2016, it wasn't the popular vote. In fact, on election night, in the wee hours of the morning, it was Wisconsin and then Pennsylvania, when we called that put Donald Trump over the top into the White House. And a lot of folks are going to remember that. So it's worth looking at what these states are doing now. Obviously, they're pivotal, really, to his chances, probably Joe Biden's too. Now, in both of these states, one of the things we see happening is concern about the coronavirus outweighing how people feel about the economy. And it's that concern about the coronavirus that's really accruing to Joe Biden, because they feel that he could do a better job of handling it than they think Donald Trump is right now. And that's the thing that's really more strongly correlated with the vote. So that's something we've seen not only in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin now, but in a lot of these state polls that we've done looking at all the Battleground Tracker states, Lana.
That is so interesting, because I always think about that famous line, it's the economy, stupid, right? But in this case, the economy is actually trumped by the handling of the coronavirus, which obviously has an impact on the economy. So is it what voters in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania think Joe Biden can do on that issue, or is it really a response to how they feel that the current president has been handling the crisis that's motivating this shift?
It looks very much like a response against the administration. You dig a little deeper into that, and voters in these polls tell us that they don't feel the administration is doing enough. We've seen in many state polling their feelings that the administration's efforts against the coronavirus have hurt the state's ability to fight it rather than helped. And we see so much of Joe Biden's vote, people tell us, is more of a choice trying to make it against the president than rather for Joe Biden. And I want to show you a couple of other things, too, because this is so key in a couple of these states. I'm going to kind of swing over to a graphic here. If you can see this, play the, it's the home edition of our graphic screen from election nights past, Lana. But I want to show you independents. Now, everybody talks about independents. We can go back and forth on how they're defined. But your basic measure here in our polling in both of these states right now, Joe Biden is up with them for the moment. Now, back in 2016, to keep using that as a benchmark, Donald Trump won independents, right? So that's one key shift, and it's very much a case that, again, they're prioritizing concern about the coronavirus over the economy. And then the other group that I want to talk about right here, although there's many to watch, is looking at voters with college degrees, specifically white voters with college degrees. Now, this is a group that last time Donald Trump and then Democrat candidate Hillary Clinton were a tie, right? And here you see Joe Biden with a 20-point lead in the polls. This tells a broader story, because across all of these states, it's these voters with college degrees that we have seen over the last couple of cycles moving towards the Democrats. So that pattern is continuing. Will there be enough of them? Will this pattern hold? That we have to see. But that's something that partly tells the story of why these states have shifted so far, Lana.
Anthony, I almost feel like we're back in the broadcast center together looking at the graphs and the data. Let me ask you about presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden's likely announcement very soon about his running mate. You and I both know that usually running mates don't matter that much in a general election. But in this case, it is going to be certainly a groundbreaking candidate who is standing beside the presumptive Democratic nominee. So how might that actually impact voters and how they feel about the Democratic ticket?
Okay, so good question. I'm going to flip through a couple of my slides here and find our look at how important will Joe Biden's VP choice be to you, which we asked voters in these two states. And what you see is among the group that says they're supporting Joe Biden, and it's very strong, that support, it's about half of them that say that it's important, more say it's not. Okay, that's something we expect because you're already committed to the candidate no matter what for maybe some other reasons. But that number of is it important goes up among people that you could describe as just considering Joe Biden, not yet for him, but would still possibly vote for him. Maybe folks who aren't also as strongly committed. There, we find that they say the VP pick will matter more. So that's historically the case, that the VP pick can move the needle a little bit. Often on the margins, it's one more factor for people who may or may not be considering the candidate right then. And that's important. Look, if these states end up being close, if the election ends up being close, as all indications are, it very well might be, then that is a pivotal factor. It's those kinds of voters who could be swayed in this as part of this equation, Lana.
All right, one last question for you, Anthony. President Trump is continuing to question the legitimacy of mail-in voting. How do voters in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin feel about the legitimacy of the process in their states?
Okay, so one of the things we see very dramatically across all these states, including these, is that Democrats say they want to vote by mail, and Republicans are saying they want to vote in person. So you may be seeing an effect of the president's messaging getting through in some respects to his base. People saying, okay, if they agree with the president, they're Republicans, they agree with the president, and they're going to go vote in person. Whereas Democrats voting by mail, what that will play out, if it holds, is that on election night, you will see, and we may be standing in front of a board like this talking about, a big difference between the mail votes and how they're breaking and the in-person votes and how they're breaking. That's not necessarily something we've always seen before because mail hasn't always advantaged one party over the other. So that, I think, is really interesting because then we talk about access issues in both cases. If you're casting a mail ballot, do you have your request in? Have you gotten the ballot? There's all those extra steps, perhaps. And if you're voting in person, is the polling place open? There's a shortage of poll workers in the primaries. Maybe there'll be one in the general. You know, those are all questions about access that will play out differently for each of the different parties. And that does seem to be breaking along those partisan lines right now, Lana.
Well, one thing we definitely know, we will not have the results as quickly as we have in previous years. Anthony Salvanto, thank you.